So I wanted to do this video on how we can walk away from toxic people and toxic environments. And sometimes that to a large degree can be our own family members. Now, I don't want to go so deep into this video and talk necessarily about those of us that are unfortunately in, say, narcissistic, abusive relationships, or those that were badly beaten or traumatized as children or are currently in that situation. I don't want to go too deep into that. It would be disrespectful to generalize that with a normal kind of toxic environment that we can see from our conditioning and stuff like that. But I have had a few requests to do a video on that more severe side of trauma, if you like, and I'll do a separate video on that, covering all those aspects. But for now, I wanted to tap on on just getting away from toxic environments, toxic people, learning how to walk away from situations that are not suiting us in our current new way of life, in our current separation period from being an egoic self to a human entity having a conscious experience. I think part of the problem lies in the beginning is the whole term of how do I walk away from that? That creates an image in our head that's so big, because we then, in our mind's eye, we will visualize our whole family members or all our friends or our work environment, our husband, wife, whatever. And we actually picture ourselves walking away into the wilderness to live a life on our own. It's actually not that. You don't actually physically walk away. In some instances, yes, you will do, and I did. But that doesn't need to be the case in every scenario. What tends to happen is, if you can kind of look at it in this way, you're breaking away from people. You're breaking away from certain environments, and you're breaking away by fulfilling a new you. You need to find and establish new areas in yourself that were once void that are now being full up. And once you start realizing that your actual essence of a human being is one of profound importance to you and to you only, unless of course you're raising children or someone's dependent, there are circumstances to some of this, but for the sake of the video, you are the most important person in this world. Because even on that front, if you're raising children or you're looking after someone, if you don't show up as your best self, then sometimes you could think there's no point in showing up. So in that essence, you really are the most important person in the world, because once you realize that and you start being that, you'll show up more authentic and genuine, and your full heart will turn up into every situation, including looking after someone or your children and stuff like that. So I guess I can take that little bit back. But that's what it is. I think firstly we need to break down that area that walking away is probably a bad way of looking at it, because it creates too much illusion in our head of what that actually means. But breaking away from an environment, or growing yourself out of it, if you like, so expanding yourself, so that what happens is you automatically start building up this wall of a defense against toxic environments from the outside coming in. And that's not something that you would physically put in place. You'll have to bear with me on this video. I've got a feeling it's going to go all over the place. But that's not something that you would physically put in place, i.e. you wouldn't physically say to yourself, right, this is now my new barrier. No one's allowed to say this to me, or I'm telling them to sod off. That's not what it means. It means from internal, you will start growing. Because this is what's going to happen in the dark night of the soul. Everything's being dragged away. And even if you're just down and depressed and you're unsure if you're in dark night of the soul, this might just be very valuable for you guys too. Because you're obviously down there and depressed and whatever else for a reason. Something in your life is not right. And sometimes it might not always be the environment or the situation we're in. Sometimes it might be our perspective of that situation that is creating the anxiety within us. And maybe your perspective of that situation is driving you down a certain route in life that's actually keeping you on track in that same position. And the more desperate you get to break away, the more you actually hold yourself in that environment. And maybe you hold yourself sometimes in that environment even more strongly, because you chase even harder after material stuffs to make your life more easy while you're in that toxic environment. Wow, I can't believe I just said all that. But what I think, it's getting back to the breaking away part. You fill yourself up. How about this? Sorry, I know I cut that short. Understanding and learning that you are not anybody's property. I remember when I was going in the deep throes of the dark night of the soul, and I was actually walking around the south coast of England, and I had a lot of profound moments when I was doing that. I had hundreds of hours on my own, and I remember looking at a tree, or looking at a forest, it actually was. But then I remember just going into this daydream and just thinking how beautiful this forest was, and I'm sitting there, and it suddenly dawned on me that the leaves on a tree are not the actual tree. And the root of a tree, if you like, the branch part, is also not the tree. The tree is made up of the one thing. So nothing within that tree owned anything. This is how my mind was going. I know, this is Dark Night of the Soul. This is what it does. This is why we need to be alone, because we make sense of this stuff. And I started to relate that the leaves don't own the tree and the tree don't own the leaves. They are one thing. And then that, for some reason, just put it into my head that nobody owns me. I am just part of one entity unit, which is us as a species, us as a universe. And once I kind of got that, I thought, wow, we spend our whole lives living it according to other people's values and opinions of us. And so I think for you guys who are stuck in there, if you can concentrate and actually really genuinely realize that you are not someone's property, and the same as you don't own your children, your parents don't own you, nobody owns anybody, and we really are free to do whatever it is in life that we think we want to do, or that we would just like to do. And that whole part of not being someone's property really stems back to the conditioning again at school, from how we was just made to conform, and anything that we wanted to do for ourselves. Not only was we seen as weird, we was also conditioned to believe that we were being selfish by wanting to do our own thing, by wanting to break away from the normal patterns. We would deem that that would be selfish. And that's the same as what's probably going on with you now. You're an adult. You've lived your whole life according to pleasing other people. That now you've hit a point in life where your ego's falling away and you're seeing you and your true essence and your true beauty for what you actually are. There's the part of you that spent all those years in the matrix now that's thinking, oh my God, I'm selfish. How selfish of me to want to move away from my close friends, my close family, or the toxic environments within the matrix. But it couldn't be further from the truth, because there's nothing toxic, there's nothing selfish about wanting to live your life and not theirs. There really is nothing selfish about that. And once you realise that's something that's been programmed into you, it makes that whole concept much easier to learn. I'm sure that made sense. I'm sure that made sense. And some of this stuff that I say as well is obviously quite obvious. But I think sometimes we can overlook and we can forget, because in our own anxious state, we can attach to these thoughts that might be coming up of what is happening to us, what's going on, why am I not just seeing things normally? Why has my taste changed? Why has my sight changed? Why has my sex life changed? I don't love my partner, or you fall more in love with them. Everything's going crazy, so it creates this anxiety in you of, why can't I just be normal again? But the reason you don't want to be normal again is because the normal that other people are living in, what the majority of people are living in, the normal that you're maybe wondering what you left, is not normal. It's not normal to be born, sit in a classroom, face a chalkboard and be told what to do by someone who has no interest really, and then go through life, get a job and then die. That's not normal. What's normal is fulfilling your whole essence as a human being, as having that being experience. And I can talk deep and woo-woo like that because we're all of that If you're watching these videos, that's because you've reached a certain point in life where you've realized that spirituality and living through your spiritual presence is much more attractive, much more fulfilling, much more romantic than anything that could ever be provided for materialistically in the matrix world. So I'm able to talk a little bit woo-woo like that. I like saying the words woo-woo. We're able to talk a little bit more woo-woo like that because that's how it is. That is the essence of being human. But now we've discovered our essence of being human, and we've seen what it is in life that we would like to do and where we would like to go. It makes it hard for us to... That's another area that makes it hard for us to shake off, is the selfishness of us now wanting to explore that avenue of life. So if you can take the visual of walking away from people out of your head and replace it with, you are growing as a human, you are growing out of those environments, it won't be long before you start seeing your true value. It won't be long before you start believing in your beliefs of how you're seeing things. You'll stop doubting yourself. You'll stop judging yourself. You'll stop worrying about whether they're judging you, and you will just start living. And once that starts happening, you start to grow and evolve out of those toxic situations. And also what happens with that is the people within those toxic environments, those toxic situations, whether it's relationships or jobs, start noticing the change in you. Remember the change we spoke about in loneliness? Why you feel lonely. It also works in reverse in this case. The change in you prevents them from penetrating you, from penetrating your environment and your space. It's almost as if they look at you like, you are weird, and they disappear from you. And that really does start to happen. And when you notice that, it's a wonderful feeling, because then you start actually thinking, wow, I really am different. And then it gets to a level where what they think of you really is, it's not that it's just it doesn't concern you anymore. It doesn't kind of even enter your head. You're too busy thinking about you and your life and what you can do to give back. So it's never about what can you do in your life in terms of what can I acquire. I think I said in the last video, I never talk about that. It's always about what can you do in your life to make yourself the best version of you, so that you can then put back into our species. Because once you start seeing humanity and you start seeing us as the magnificence that we are, you realize there's a bigger picture in this universe than going to work and earning money to buy things to make your life look good to someone else. It doesn't count with us kind of people. Once you have that awakening, or you become spiritual, or even just people who are not necessarily spiritual but are just very awake to the whole thing, they can also be like that and want to give back. And I think that's what, I know that's why I do these videos. Like I've said to you, I mean, you guys leave me such wonderful comments. It actually puts tears in my eyes at times, but you leave me such wonderful comments, but I still have this knowing that I'm probably not the best in the world at these things. I'm definitely not, say, like an Eckhart Tolle doing this kind of thing. And because of that, that could stop me from getting my message out there. However, I have such belief now in myself and my environment. I have such a belief in the message that I want to get out to some people who are experiencing the sadness and the beauty of Dark Night of the Soul. All those souls that are just sitting there in a world of depression, not sure where they're going in life or what they're doing. Maybe they just like listening to someone who kind of looks normal. And maybe they like the sound of my voice. Perhaps they like my accent. Perhaps they like my mannerisms. And they're not really listening to anything that I'm saying. And maybe they're just like someone being there. That's all I want to get out of these videos. And the reason I can carry on doing them is because the whole concept of everything I was just saying is, I'm now in that place where my why, if you like, is much bigger than what it used to be. It's now, I want to take part in our species, and I'm sure the guys who are very who have gone right through the dark night of the soul and are now probably grinning. But you actually do. You want to give back, and because that becomes your purpose, you're much more able to overcome any self-consciousness that you might be experiencing, and that's what creates the beautiful self-belief in you. Because you will start doing things. You'll naturally start gravitating towards areas of your life where toxicity will not be. And it won't be there, not because you're avoiding it, but because you have become part of this. You have become part of it. And so you naturally now just want to give everything to yourself that you deserve as part of nature. Not, you don't want to give it to yourself because you want to look good. That's now gone. You want to give it to yourself because you start becoming aware you are part of nature, and so you want to start looking after yourself. You wouldn't pour, I don't know, petrol over a load of grass. The same, so why do we drink these terrible drinks? Do you know what I'm trying to say there? There's things we wouldn't do in nature, but we would do to ourselves because we're neglecting to look at ourselves like we are nature. And if you start really indulging in that way of life, that is a bona fide way to make you get away from this burden that you're feeling, that you owe people something, that you're being selfish for wanting to break away. You're being selfish for wanting to explore and navigate into the depths of you and your soul. Why would that be selfish if you think about it? All you've ever done is explored and navigate into their soul. So now it's time to give back to your soul. And in a way, from that, you'll give back more to the world anyway. But I hope that makes sense to some of you. You all know by now, I sometimes doubt my delivery or where I'm going. It's really difficult to stay on track. And just as a digression quickly, I actually have notes wrote here, and they're all around me. I can't look at them. I can't read them whilst I'm doing this. I'm not a very good writer anyway, and being dyslexic, I can't read my note. They're all there and I can look at them, but I can't read them as I'm talking, so I can't flow. But again, that goes back to the whole, you start to learn and understand your message. Your message becomes bigger than what you are, and because your message becomes bigger than what you are, you will overcome hurdles in your life to get to the point where it is that you want to get your message out. You will do whatever it takes because you don't feel self-consciousness, because you're part of a bigger picture. And then that's the whole part right there of when you start feeling that, you then stop feeling selfish. When you stop feeling selfish, you start giving back more to yourself, and you start living a more fluid life. And that's where you find that walking away from the toxic environments, or staying within the toxic environments, if you've got toxic parents, but ultimately they're loving people, but they're just a bit toxic for you, staying with that. But you now know your whole perspective on the situation has changed. And because your perspective on the situation has changed, you can stay with them, you can love them, and you can just show them how your life is evolving. And pretty soon they stop asking questions. I wonder if that's a good place to end it. And let me have a little look up there. Oh, that was going to be the title of this video, actually. Your free thought. It's not a case of walking away. It's your free thought. Free thought is in a fight or in a conflict with their ego views, with their ego self. And that was going to be the title of this video. So there you go. But anyway, I hope some of you found that a little bit interesting. I sometimes worry, guys, that I'm kind of repeating myself a little bit. And remember, I wanted this to all be a community, and for us to kind of just all get involved, which we are doing. It's absolutely wonderful. As I'm recording this, I think I'm coming up to 500 subscribers. That's just bonkers. But so you can also guide me. I love getting the requests in of what videos you would like me to do. I really enjoy that. getting the videos in. I love reading your comments. Sorry if I don't get back to all of you, but there are now loads and loads coming in. And I also get lots of emails from you guys as well, which is really quite cool. But you can also tell me where you would like me to go with this channel. If there's an idea that you have that you'd like me to do. I'm happy to be the host of all of this. But it is ours, and I don't mean that in a corny way, if you like. The fact that I even had to just say that last bit there goes to show you how deep the ego goes. I was a bit concerned that you might think I'm trying to brag, so I had to drop that bit in. Shows you how deep the ego goes in all of us. But anyway, guys, I love every one of you. It's a lovely, lovely sunny day here. Clear blue sky, so I'm going to go for my walk along the river, where I'll probably sit down on a little bench, watch the swans and the geese go by with their little chicks this time of year, and then just sit there in a daydream and do nothing. This is the beauty of Dark Night of the Soul, and when you come out the other side, most of my day is spent not really thinking about things and just enjoying what's going on now and not taking everything so seriously. Once the story that you've been telling yourself your whole life, once the story that your mind is telling you about certain situations, once that goes, you really are just free to live how you want to live. Anyway, I'm going. That's the last digression, I promise. Okay, guys, love every one of you. Thank you so much.